Somebody's written, Swami, I spoke only 35 sentences. Can I speak the rest tomorrow? You gave me a quota of 50. I spoke 35, so 15 is in my quota. Can I speak? Today is 40. Yesterday's quota is still going on. It's 6 to 6 it is in the evening. Can I use it for tomorrow? Where is the need for it? The whole idea is that you develop a sense of discrimination and understand that you don't need to speak those sentences. I only said yesterday, you don't be the initiator of the conversations. You don't start unnecessary talks. Sarvarambha parityagi. Even this, you should not be the initiator. Begin here. I'm not the initiator of unnecessary conversations, whether at home or in office or in the ashram or even within myself. Simply keep thinking and talking something to yourself. For none of these, I should be the initiator. If it comes because of some other people's requirement, a doctor is there, patient comes and asks for some medicine, doctor needs to tell. And tell it correctly, because if patient misunderstands, he will take the wrong medicine at the wrong dosage and suffer more. If a parent is there, child comes and asks a few questions, you answer it only to that extent. If there is a examiner or teacher is there who asks a few questions, the student has to reply. So to that extent, what really maunam is not the external maunam. Truly is you're trying to quieten your internal organs. As he said, internal organs are there. External is physical, karmendriyas. There is jnanendriyas which are supporting these karmendriyas. And those you have to bring under control. But those can be controlled by controlling the mind. The temptations to speak, to chat. Somebody is walking, coming that way, oh, I want to speak. Not necessary. So you just avoid saying. So mind has to be controlled. Mind can be controlled by buddhi. Buddhi is the intelligence which discriminates. Is it necessary to speak? Is it not necessary to speak? So buddhi says it is not necessary. Therefore I shouldn't speak. Done. And then finally, as you quieten and quieten and quieten, as he said, silence is silence. You will be able to go more inwards. You will be able to enjoy your own silence, on your own peace. After 2 more weeks of practice, you will think, how did I even speak so much? Ridiculous that I was such a chatterbox. Ridiculous that I thought so many things. It's so ridiculous that I used to so active in doing so many unwanted things. You will feel, you look at your own little past and you will feel for yourself, how could I eat like this? How could I sleep like that? How could I go on talking like this? Everything where you will see yourself from a new perspective. So it's not a quota, it is only to ensure that if something, you have to come to a complete silence. A vehicle, when you apply a brake, it won't come to a halt all of a sudden. It takes a while. You switch off the fan. It won't come to sudden stop. Slowly it will rotate and finally come to a standstill. Likewise, your mind and your senses, they have been so active ever since you were born. And suddenly I am saying midway through your life, or even later half of your life, or even towards the end of your life, I am telling you that you should control them and bring them to a halt. Obviously, suddenly you cannot apply brakes and bring it to a halt. That's why I give you 1 week's time. That your mouth is so used to talking all the time. Eyes are so used to seeing all the time. Ears are so used to hearing all the time. Tongue is so used to tasting all the time. Hands are so used to touching all the time from since ever since you were born. So this is an exercise of 1 week at least of breaking you should apply. It will come to a halt without disturbing anything in your inside, outside. Slowly it comes to a standstill. That is why 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5 and 0. But that practice is your own personal sadhana. Nobody can help you in that. How much you eat, how much you breathe, how much you sleep is all in your hands. Externally, nobody can help you. We can only tell you this is the logic. The logic is suddenly you can't bring it to a screeching halt. You will meet with an accident, there will be disturbance inside, outside. So slowly bring it to a stop. What is that slowness? Like this, reducing your number of sentences. It means what? You are consciously speaking. Most of our lives we are living unconsciously. As we are doing as it comes to us by the force of habits. We are not doing it knowingly. Unknowingly we are doing. Unmindful of what we are saying, thinking, writing, reading, eating, sleeping. Not at all mindful. So this is mindfulness. That is also a Buddhist path. The Eightfold Yoga. He said mindfulness is one. Samyak mana. Your mind should be samyak good, and you should be aware of your mind's activities. You can't just ignore it and become a habit. So you should be able to see it and what it does, and you should be able to decide for it. Buddhi should decide for the mind. Should or should not be. That is what Kathopanishad gives beautiful example of a ratha. Even Bhagavad Gita gives that. The body is the ratha. Indriyas are the horses. The road is the Vishaya. That is all the things that Indriyas enjoy. Goal is to realize. Who is the Sarathi? Buddhi is the Sarathi. Who is the person sitting inside the Ratha? That is your Jiva, Atmani. And then the mind is the reins to control your senses. If your horses of the mouth, want to talk, Buddhi should pull that rein and say, no, shouldn't talk too much. If they want to see unnecessary things, Buddhi should pull the rein and say, no, you should not. If you want to go and taste something which is unnecessary, Buddhi should pull it back, saying no. That kind of a mati, that kind of a buddhi, vijnana buddhi. It is aware, it is not going by habit, dead habits. All that we have collected over past many births. It's not going by our instincts and vasanas. It is able to discriminate. Vijnana yukta buddhi it is. It's aware. It's not unaware of what it is. And how is the mind? Samanaska. There is good mind it is. And good horses. They are not dushta. They are not the bad horses. They are good horses who listen to you when you are able to control them. Of course, in the beginning they were not listening, but now with all this practice of controlling shama, dama, or yama, niyama, you have brought some control onto your senses, and their running towards the sense objects has been curbed by the wise use of buddhi and by the frequent use of your mana to control them, not allow them to run away. So that your journey towards your destination is becoming better and smoother now. This is the path, this is what we are doing right now. Just as what it was described in Upanishads, just as what it was described in Bhagavad Gita, the same thing we are following. Asking buddhi to control the mind so that mind can control the bad horses, and ensures that all the horses go straight towards the destination and don't go this way and that way and trouble the passenger. That's all we are trying to do. So why should I speak or not speak? Not because you should speak or you should not speak. It is only because is it necessary or not necessary? It's not necessary. Don't speak why you should eat. Suppose your stomach is full and your stomach is saying, don't eat anymore. I don't think I'll be able to digest, overloaded. But tongue says what? Eat it, eat it, eat it. Then what should we do? You use your, they say, no, buddhi upyoginchu. Use your brains, they say. Brains is a physical faculty, but the software inside the brain is buddhi. That's a hardware. So buddhi decides, no, though it is very tasty and the tongue is wanting to have it, but stomach cannot digest it, it will lead to constipation, it will lead to unnecessary stomach trouble. Let us not eat it. The buddhi decides, mind directs the tongue. Nothing doing, enough is enough, get up. So gets up. So immediately it feels bad because the preyo marga, it wanted the pleasant things. It feels bad, it even curses you, even 10 more, 15 more minutes. After that, there is a kind of remorse. I should have eaten it, what's wrong with me? Everybody is eating, I got up like a fool. I could have eaten another dosa, another chapati, another sweet. But buddhi has been telling, no, that's not right. But others are eating, see there, everybody is talking around. Why should I alone punish myself? You're not punishing yourself, you're actually progressing. So what others do what they want. You are interested in your welfare, right? Atmanohi, Atmano Bandhu, you are your friend. You have to help yourself. Therefore you decided to get up, you decided not to talk, use your buddhi, and buddhi directed the mind, and mind directed the tongue. Get up, don't eat anymore. Directed the legs, hands, get up, wash your plate, go back to your room. And after Those first 15 minutes are miserable of this experience. But later, the whole day, you are light and healthy. You feel light and you are active, you can do all your work. And when you look around yourself, all those who have been eating relentlessly, all are asleep in the hostel because they've eaten so well, special lunch, nobody is waking up in the evening. But you alone are active and you're able to finish your homework, you're able to finish your assignments, you're able to do everything actively. Now, all of them will wake up after 2-3 hours of sleep and then start panicking. I didn't finish my work, I did this, I did that. Now who is happier? Who has the last laugh at this, as they say? You have the last laugh because you followed the Shreyo Marga. That's all we have been doing. We started with our journey with understanding that Yama Niyama is the basics of life. It has to be practiced at all times. And we started with that. Considering that you are practicing that, do some, I said, pranayama. Watch your mind, watch your breath. If your mind is too fast, control your breath, your mind will slow down. So you can do it, see it in slow motion. What your mind is thinking, how it is doing, what it is doing. You can pause it and zoom it and see exactly what's going on in your mind. You analyze it. Otherwise, you breathe so fast, mind keeps running, you are hardly able to catch the mind. It's so fast. So I taught you, breathe slowly, start there. Sit down in a place, don't keep moving here and there restlessly. So that your mind, the motion of the mind can be clearly understood. Just like we pause, zoom, and understand the details of it, where it comes from, what is doing, what is its thought. Anyway, that happened. Then you realize so many things were there which I was not even aware. Suddenly I did sit in meditation, some old past memories which I thought it is forgotten, buried and done, they all are surfacing from somewhere. Where were they all these times? They were there in your subconscious, in the lower racks of the cupboard. As you start digging, you find all these things. Then we said, throw it away. Oh, this is so dear to me. This was my childhood doll. This was the first gift I received on my 5th birthday. So what? You fit into that clothes, those clothes which were gifted to you, shoes, no. Then throw it away. Give it away, throw it away, whichever way. So Vairagya. But I can't do it, it's so difficult. Then pray to God for strength to do it. And with the knowledge that only after doing this can you progress. Otherwise you will not progress. So knowing that you will progress only through Vairagya, you pray to God and start getting rid of things. So that was done for some time. 2 weeks, some exercise happened. Now how much is left in your cupboard, how much is thrown, you only know. Nobody else knows. So you be honest to yourself. Don't fool yourself. Be your bandhu. Atma bandhu. Be your own friend. Be honest to yourself. Otherwise you will become Ripura Atmana. You will become your own enemy. So be your friend. Tell the truth to yourself and do what is required. Then we came and told, okay, now we have got some control over our mind and our ideas. Let us now think, focus the mind. Pranayama is over, Pratyahara is over, Dharana has come. Dharana means holding one thought at a time for long periods of time. May not be for a whole night, but at least for long periods of time we are keeping only one thought in our mind. That is dharana. So now the thought was given. What was the thought? Aham Brahmasmi. You are God. And just that you don't misunderstand that you alone are God, we also told you, everyone also, everything also is God. So Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, or Sarvam Brahma, as you feel comfortable. Now you're keeping that thought and you're chanting Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. It's going on. So you meet somebody, you don't want to talk because it disturbs your mananam. Unnecessary. I know that also is Brahman, but there's no necessity right now to go and talk to that Brahman right now. My Brahman within me, I must realize first. So once you realize that, you'll realize everything else, they say. That is what Chandogya Upanishad said. Shvetaketu came back after 12 years of learning, with head swollen with ego, thinking he knows more than his father, Uddalaka. Because Uddalaka did not go for such big study time. So he came back and very arrogant. So looking at face, father understood. This fellow has not learnt anything. And so he asked him, have you learnt about Atman? Have you learnt about that, knowing which everything else will be known? He had no idea, he had no answer. That is when he taught him. That a clay is there and clay pots are there. What will you call it? You will call it a pot. I will call it clay. Mrittika. This is clay. And therefore, everything is you only. Everything is made of the same Brahman is what Father taught the Son. And the Upanishad mentions that he couldn't understand. His head was so full with all the logic and all the ideas that he had come with. His head was so full, he didn't understand. 9 times Father had to explain. After 9 times, this Shvetageta understood what my father is saying. Why? Because the head was full. If the head was empty, then he would have understood in the first time itself. It's full with all the ego of all the knowledge that he has of all the Vedas. So he couldn't understand anything what Father was saying. That's what happens to most of the people. They come to ashram, I tell so many good things, they don't understand anything. All that is fine, Swami. So when I'm going to get my job? I go on repeating so much. So when is my daughter going to get married? Very nice, very nice. But when am I going to build the house? Nothing goes inside. Because they're not oriented. They have not done this basic sadhana to reach this stage of holding any pure positive thought. It will be scattered. So what happens? You are practiced now. There is a possibility for you to hold this one thought in your head for long periods of time. Anytime you get angry, tell yourself, Aham Brahmasmi. How can Brahman get angry? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. How can somebody harm me? How can I harm somebody? And you'll start learning to forgive. First beneficiary is you. You will find peace. You will find happiness. You will find calmness. So you are getting better as a person with this practice. World becomes better or not, that is second. That is why when somebody asks how to help the world, Ramana Maharshi said, help yourself. Help yourself. The world will look after later. First you help yourself. That helping is what you are doing right now. Help yourself. Swayam Seva. Help yourself. So I hope you are helping yourself. Now, these numbers 50-40 is not some Lakshman Rekha. But definitely within that is very good. Above that is not good. Some standard we should have, some way to check our progress, isn't it? Otherwise we won't know how far we are going. Therefore some milestones, some checks, some balances should control your... So idea is that to bring it to a still. What kind of speech? Unnecessary speech. Unnecessary speech, whether it's spoken, all 4 kinds of speech are there, they say. Vaikari is to speak with mouth. Madhyama is to speak in the mind. Pashyati is to think and visualize. And Paran is, there is no talk there. That is absolute silence. That you just know. That is only Brahman's language. So Brahman speaks in the language of Para. Buddhi speaks in the language of Pasyati. Mind speaks in the language of Madhyama. And mouth, Indriya speak in the language of Vaikari. I speak loudly, that is my body is active, but because body cannot speak unless mind is active, mind cannot do anything unless Buddhi is guiding it. So altogether 3 of these things are active in you. So as you speak physically, you are also mentally thinking about it. Also you are having some kind of visualization of that in your intelligence, in your Buddhi. When you see samosa, you say, let us say, what happened just now? A picture of samosa appeared in your mind's eye. That is Pashyanti, you saw samosa. Then what happened? Mind immediately smelt. There is no samosa here. But smell of samosa is coming from somewhere. The taste of samosa is now come onto your tongue. Last time you had that samosa was spicy, this was sweet. The heat, the touch of samosa is felt by your hand. Not physically, but mentally you are feeling all this. Hot samosa. Your tongue has got burnt also by putting hot aloo in your mouth, in that greed of eating fast. So your nose can smell, your eyes can see, isn't it? Your tongue can touch and taste, your hands can feel it, and you can even hear your burp after eating one samosa. All this mind is doing. Physically there is no samosa. That's what it does in the dreams. Mahiman Anubhavati. It experiences great power in the dream, says Prashna Upanishad. Mahimanam Anubhavati. What is Mahimanam? Everything. Shrutam cha, ashrutam cha, drishyam cha, adrishyam cha, anubhavam cha, ananubhavam cha. Everything it experiences. What you have actually experienced and not experienced also, but it remained as a thought. Ah, you thought of samosa. Now in dream you will be eating samosa. Because you have put that thought inside your head. So Madhyama also is a talk. Talk to yourself. So you have to avoid mind's talk also. Physically you shut your mouth, put a tape, doesn't work. There was somebody was joking in Varanasi, somebody came from another city, from Calcutta or somewhere. Calcutta, people all the time talk. One thing that Calcutta people do is talk. All the time. Except when they have a rasgulla in their mouth, I think. All the time they're talking. So this man came to Varanasi. In Calcutta, you go, somebody touches you, you see, there'll be a big fight on the road. Big loud fight will start. But this fellow came to Varanasi and saw the streets are so narrow, crowded, and everybody is hitting against everybody else. No? Because people are walking, and people are walking this way, that way, there is no traffic, there is nothing, in those small lanes, temples. This man was disgusted. So many people are there everywhere. And they are hitting him, or he is hitting them because of that. But even though he shouts, they don't shout back. They are very calm. Okay, like that they will go away. Rickshaws are coming, cows are coming, people are coming. He's getting frustrated. But nobody is saying a word. So finally he reaches his guru and says that, this is a strange experience. Looks like the Varanasi is truly a divine place. Because in Calcutta, if this had happened, there would have been murders by now. But here nobody is talking. Looks like they all have really, become great devotees and attained that wisdom. He said, no, don't go too far. They all eat pan. Who wants to lose the taste of pan and talk to you? So they are busy eating their pan. That's why they don't want to speak. The pan Banaras wala, why should they throw the pan? Because if they have to speak, they have to spit the pan. And then only they can shout at you. But spitting the pan means losing the joy of Banaras pan. Who wants to argue with you because I'm enjoying my pan? Go. It's all right. You hit me, I hit you, doesn't matter. Go, because I don't want to spit my pan. I'm enjoying it. Is that maunam? Is that maunam? So that kind of physical push I don't want to. Physically you keep quiet. That is the first step. But more importantly, mentally keep quiet. Stop talking to yourself in the mind, imagining things in your buddhi. Stop. Because only then you are true maunam. Sentences, a number of sentences only. But if your sentences in the mind are running into hundreds and thousands, you have not achieved much by physical. You are like those people in Varanasi. Don't speak because they have something else they are busy with. But they are not speaking not because they don't want to speak. They are not because they are in a state of maunam. So maunam is a very, very important practice for spiritual aspirants. Chidananda Saraswatiji's ashram, I'm told till 10 o'clock he doesn't speak to anybody. He's a mauni that time. So what happens when I go there, even when we were leaving, he saw us. But he didn't speak a word. He asked somebody else to explain whatever he wanted to convey. But he didn't speak. He said that I am speaking, after 10 only I open my mouth. Also the great quality of a bhakta, tulya ninda stutir mauni. He keeps quiet even if ninda comes or stuti comes. He learns to keep quiet. So if you learn how to keep quiet now, in life when there are difficult situations where somebody is praising you or somebody is believing you, in both the situations you will learn to be quiet. Also it says bhavati nativadi becomes less talkative. The person who is on the spiritual path becomes naturally less talkative because he understands it's futile to speak unnecessarily. There is no point. It's not adding value to anything. Why should I speak and waste my energy? So they don't want to waste their energy on anything. That is the idea of maunam, silence. It's not just for the sake of, don't go back and practice like the cat under the basket type maunam. That's not the maunam that we are talking about. We are really asking to calm down the mind. And I hope that you have practiced calming down the mind. That is how you are able to come this far. So it shouldn't be too much difficult for you to speak less. But if necessity is there, only speak to that extent and avoid unnecessary speaks. It means what? Swami has told only that many sentences and no complex sentences. That also I have told. And if, but, therefore, so, thus, all these conjunctions, no, nothing will be working here. Don't use any of these things. So how do I speak one single sentence? It means I have to speak less, means I have to think what I am speaking. How many people think before speaking? They just blabber. And then think after speaking and suffer. While they speak, the other suffers. After they finish speaking, they suffer. Now what it is doing, it is helping you to choose your words carefully. It means if that person is there, I have to give instruction. I'll sit down and think what sentences I must speak so that I don't cross my quota. At the same time, I finish my duty. Let me think how many words should I use, what. So in that, whatever unnecessary you will not speak. You will not get into unnecessary. You will just speak those two important sentences which will convey the meaning, and you are done. Otherwise, you would have spoken for 15 minutes, and starting with one topic, it would have gone to another, another. 15 minutes later, the actual topic you have not even spoken, you will realize. You have spoken about everything else under the sun. It means what? By force of habit, you are doing things, not mindful. Mana, samyak mana is not there. Samyak buddhi is not there. Simply you are chattering away. So that control on your tongue will help you a lot. Jivagre vasate Lakshmi. Jivagre mitra bandhava. Jivagre sarvam prapti. Jivagre maranam dhruvam. On tongue resides the Lakshmi. On tongue reside all the friends. On tongue all the things can be obtained through the tongue. And even death comes to one because of their own tongue, they say. So you are learning the first lesson in spirituality. How to control your tongue through by control of mind. So if you don't speak in physically, it's okay. Mentally also you should learn not to speak. So what should I mentally? I should do Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Brahma. These two sentences are exempted from the count. That you speak million times also is exempted. That you keep telling yourself. So Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Brahma. Walking, talking, moving around, Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Brahma. Like this. Like the pan, Banaras pan. That should go on in yours. And the joy of speaking that to yourself is so good. Why should you speak to anybody else? So this is your secret of how to keep your mouth shut, mind also shut. And if mind has to be active, then let it be active thinking of this particular thing. Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Kalidam Brahma. Keep telling yourself. And then mind has no time to talk to anybody else. Suppose I am talking to you, can I simultaneously talk to her? Not possible. So I am busy in my mind, talking to myself about Brahman. So how can I talk to anybody else during that time? It means I have to stop this and then speak. Why should I stop this? This is better than that. So that should help us to develop this kind of a control on our tongue and our mind. So that is the secret of this week. But the truth is that this is not the end. This is the beginning only. Or in fact, this 4 weeks, it is halfway. Now these 4 weeks should repeat themselves for the rest of your lives, isn't it? If you just stop at these 4 weeks, you think all your billions of births, vasanas will disappear. So you have to keep repeating it to yourself another time. Now, why am I doing that? There was a very interesting thing happened this morning. I was sitting, so I was reading one book of Ramana Maharshi they have given me. Somebody has gifted, it was lying in the cupboard. I never read it. As the other day Vivekananda said, no, those books you deserve only you read. A fool can collect as many books, but he reads only what he deserves. So that is how probably the deservedness. So I was reading and I saw Ramana Maharshi in the room, mana subtle. So I was very stunned because I thought generally doesn't like going anywhere, generally doesn't like talking to anybody. Why would he come here? I just thought, why is he here? And he said, it's very good. Mentally speaking, not physically. It's all conversations. It's very good. I said, what is very good? This Brahma Jnana is good. What is being taught here right now and learned by people is very good. This is his liking. See, so many projects, hospitals, schools we built, he never came and said it's very good. First time he's coming and telling this is very good. So I said, good that you think like that, this is good. We are happy to hear that. He said, what shall we do with this? I asked, what shall we do further? He said, take it, throw it, spread it, scatter it everywhere. This is what he said. Spread it, distribute it, scatter it. These are the 3 words in whatever the mind's language that I understood. Spread it, distribute it, scatter it like seeds. That's all he said and disappeared. So what am I doing right now? This is a seed bed. In Premadeep, in these sessions, we are preparing the future. You are the seeds. You will be scattered everywhere around the world. When I decide to stop speaking, you will have to speak. You will spread this seed of jnana to billions of people around the world, establishing yourself in so many ashrams and so many institutions that are coming up now online, and all the methodologies are there. This is in your hands now, how you will take forward and spread it to the rest of the world, because other things will change. So that is what he said. Spread it, distribute it, scatter it. Spread it when you can. Speak and spread it. Distribute it, you personally go and hand over. Scatter it, you can't reach, just throw wherever it falls. But don't keep it to yourself. That's what he meant. Don't keep it to yourself. Spread it, distribute it, scatter it. That is the idea. Spread it from one to the other, and the other to the other. Let it go viral. Distribute it. Personally, when you meet people, even if you cannot do it online or do it by writing, or talk to them about it. Scatter it. Now you have nobody around, nothing, just throw. Wherever it falls, fine. It will grow. If it catches the right soil, it will grow from there. Now farmers throw so many seeds, not everything germinates. Whichever catch the root and germinate, they are the ones which become a tree. The seed balling, there was an exercise. Some group came from Bangalore. They said, we want to make seed balls here. I told, what is that? They said, we'll put a seed inside a cow dung cake, like a ball. They will make with some earth, cow dung and some basic things, and they'll make a ball. And then do what? Said, we will throw it. What will happen with that? Because it has some nutrition for a couple of weeks, the seed. Wherever it falls in the soil, if the soil is good enough, conducive, it will sprout and germinate and start growing there. That's how we can do afforestation. Oh, that's a very good idea. They're calling it seed bombing. They go with helicopters and throw seeds in the desert areas. Lots of African desert area is now being converted into forests. They do this seed bombing. That is what Ramana Maharshi wants. Seed bomb it. Seed ball it. Spread it everywhere. But you have to prepare seed ball somewhere, no? So this is where in Premadip we are sitting and preparing these seed balls with some nutrition, some protection. And finally, the Atma Vidya seed is inside. And then it will be taken and thrown into all the desert lands of the earth. In the sense, people who have minds like deserts, dry and nothing is there, nothing grows there. That's where this all will go. That is the higher idea of why all this is happening. Not simply wasting time. It's not without a reason. So this big reason is there. So you have to spread it later tomorrow. That is the idea. So that is why because he just mentioned that you see it has to be, you people have to take it forward. If somebody asks, he doesn't speak anymore. No. Oh, how will we learn? Don't worry, he has taught us. And we know. So now we will teach you. And from there it will spread to many people. That is your role in the future. You teach your students, you teach your colleagues, you teach people in the world. As is your positioning wherever you go, wherever you are established, you will go there and spread this. Whole world will run behind this Vidya. You wait and watch. Whole world. All those who proudly call themselves atheists, non-religious, all people will run behind this Vidya. Because the most beautiful part of this Vidya is what? There is no God in this. You are the God. If I tell this, you have to believe a Brahma as the God, Vishnu as the God. Christians will say, no, we don't believe in these kind of gods. Some other Muslims will say, we don't believe in form at all. So how do you talk about these things? Why will they come? Buddhists will say, we don't believe, everything is shunyam at the end, nothing exists. What are you talking? But here, what is it Vedanta saying? Don't worry about a God somewhere else, a God in form, no, out of form. God is you. You are God. So first it will sound a little shocking to many. But slowly they will digest this thought. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. How do I realize it? There is a methodology. 30 days challenge is there. Want to take it up? Take it up. And learn what we can do. At least after the end of 30 days, they will know that they are better people than what they were before. And whether they realize God or not, at least they realize that they are better people. It has helped them. They're calmer. They can respond better to things in life. They don't get agitated when things go out of their wish, like what they want doesn't happen. They don't get agitated. Some of those great powers will come to them, to a sense of balance. That itself is great. Realization Brahman comes or not, that is secondary. Primarily, you get benefited in every day-to-day life, you get benefited. Every day you are doing better than before. No psychologists required, no depression medicines. 65% of the US takes depression medicines. Can you believe that? They take medicines for depression. 65% of the US. So I told no medication, meditation. Use meditation to grow. Because they're permanent. They're not temporary. The first time these Vedantic thoughts went to US, through so many people it went. So there's hippie culture going on in the 60s, 70s. If you see most of the Indian gurus and spiritual masters, they went to US around that time. 60s, 70s, whether it's ISKCON, whether it's the Hare Krishna mission, whether it's, I don't want to name also, but there are plenty of them who went there and started their own missions there. All were during that time of 60, 70. Why? Because the US youth were so disillusioned. They felt they don't know what's the purpose of life. They were protesting, they were fighting against this Korean war, they were fighting against Vietnamese war, all kinds of things they were fighting against, because the US was poking nose everywhere. And these young people stood up and they said, this is tragedy. We don't want to lead the same life as what our fathers and grandfathers have lived. They wanted liberty, freedom. These were the watchwords. But they didn't know where to find it. So they took to medication, deep wine. All the time they're all stoned and lying in one corner, thinking they're having some terrific experiences. That's what they came to. But when our Vedantins, when our people, whether Dvaita Bhakti or Vishishta Dvaita or Advaita, went to US, and they showed them there is another way. What you are trying is all temporary. This is not what it is. When Bhakti, Srila Prabhupada from the ISKCON, he took the Bhakti, Krishna Bhakti movement to US. Went alone with one suitcase, not even a suitcase, but one petty. In that 2 pairs of his clothes, one Japmala, one Bhagavad Gita book and little money. He went to US because his guru told him to go. It's very inspiring story, very inspiring. His story, you should read, because Vivekananda was 100 years before. This is only 50 years, 30 years. What a beautiful story, how he went with one Krishna Bhakti and Guru Bhakti in his mind. My guru told, go and spread Krishna Bhakti to the world. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's all. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. This is all he taught to those hippies. He couldn't have taught Bhagavad Gita, isn't it, first day? Could he have taught Bhagavad Gita to them? They were singing some silly songs. He told, let me teach you a song. He caught hold of 10, 12 hippies. He had no place to live or nothing. He also roamed around with hippies for so long. And taught them, let's sing Krishna's name instead of singing all these wasteful songs of protests and songs of revolts. Let us sing a song of Krishna. All these movements you see, all these Beatles and all, everything became famous during that time because these hippies were the reason for their fame. Blues, jazz, Tigrit tells me all about all these things. They all became popular. He himself was a hippie, this Tigrit. That's why he thought this hippie, this young culture, the break-free culture, wants some idols to worship. So he created the altar called Hard Rock Cafe. And who are the gods of that? Beatles. And he brought them all. All these singers, rock, jazz, pop, blues, everybody he brought and made them all play, sing in Hard Rock Cafe, and all these young people got attracted. But what did our man do, Srila Prabhupada? He said, forget blues, jazz. I will teach you something which is more enchanting than all those. Come, let us sing the name of Krishna. Kalo nastyeva 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 gatir anyatha harirnama 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 kevalam. God's name alone is the savior in this Kali Yuga. Nothing else is. Let me teach you. And he just taught them 2 lines. Let us sing Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And they sang behind him. And they felt some joy in it. Because so sweet. Pibare Ramarasam. So happy. They started enjoying it. These hippies. And dancing to it. And making their own tunes and making their own things. And slowly all of them became followers of Prabhupada. One man, that too he was I think maybe already in 70s or something, his age-wise. He was quite old. He was not like young man like Vivekananda in his 30s. He was almost in the late 60s or something of his own age. He went then. And look at his courage, just stands in the corner of a street, sings Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. These hippies join him, they all become a Nagar Sankirtan group, and then they keep chanting, running around, playing, singing Krishna's name. And they've forgotten their drinking, smoking, everything. They've forgotten all those wrong habits, and they're enjoying Krishna's name, dancing to it. That is seed sown. That is seed bombing. One seed left from Vrindavan and landed in the heart of America, the Western civilization. And what did it do? Created a movement like none other. Just look at the movement, ISKCON. Akshay Patra, I keep a tab on what they're doing because we have Annapurna. I must know what else can be done when they're doing so much. We took a lot of lessons from Akshay Patra. We studied their model, the centralized model, or should be decentralized. We went there, they checked the kitchens, they understood from them, and those Swamijis were very kind. Dasas, they call themselves. They were very kind to explain. They didn't have that, no, who is this? Explain how to run, what are the difficulties in a centralized kitchen, how it should learn, what are the difficulties in logistics. They explained. Then we came to a model that no, we cannot run a central kitchen. Because breakfast has to be delivered in the early mornings. They start cooking at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the night. And then their vehicles leave at something like morning 6 o'clock or something, reach there by with Bangalore traffic, you see. They reach the places by 9:30, 10. Then this lunch is served around 11:30, 12. So, it's a long process. So we learned this is not possible. We'll have to cook everywhere, wherever we should find cooks and teach them to cook there itself. And this Hare Krishna's and Akshay Patra was Prabhupada's idea. He saw people hungry dying, Bengal. And he said, how can people die like this without food? Let us give. Started with a few people. Today is a huge movement. It's like one of the world's largest movements in terms of feeding the people, especially school-going children. See, spirituality can lead to so many things. One seed can lead to so many trees. So beautifully he has taught that. And what he did, all these disoriented, disillusioned, disbanded people of the hippie times, converted all of them into Krishna devotees. Staunch devotees of Krishna, not ordinary. Why? Because they tasted something which they had never tasted before. No amount of physical pleasures or medications could come anywhere near the Krishna's name. It was so beautiful. One small name of Krishna doesn't cost you anything. Change the fate of millions of people. Millions in America. And then it spread to everywhere. Now they're in almost every country, building temples, doing seva and sadhana, and so many young people are part of this mission. I have met some of them before in the temple here in ISKCON in Bangalore, Rajaji Nagar. So beautiful. They're so dedicated, so keen on this, their spiritual growth, Of course, their way is Kaivalya, which comes with Krishna's Anugraha. You have to sing Krishna's name, worship him, Sarvam Krishnamayam, read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. That is their methodology. Whichever method, ultimately Jnana is the destination. You take Bhakti Marga, Karma Marga. But they are very clear, Krishna is in all. Why should they feed everybody? Because he is in all. He is the one, Aham Vaishwa Naro Bhutva, himself has said in the Bhagavad Gita. So we have to feed. Practical spirituality. So that is seeds sown. Krishna says, Bijam Sarva Bhutanam, I am the seed of all the beings, because everybody is grown from me. I am Bija. That is what you are. You will be this Jnana Bija, Atma Bija that you are carrying, will go and grow into huge movements, transformation movements, especially in these times when people are really getting disoriented and disillusioned. They don't know what is real in life because whatever they earned is all collapsing in front of their eyes. So they need to know what is truth. And that truth is what is we are here to tell. But unless you understand the truth, it's like blind leading the blind. Andhainaiva niyamana yathandaha. So what is the use? Nobody will reach anywhere. So your job is to open your eyes. Not the two eyes, charma chakshus, chakshuscha chakshuhu. The eye of the eye you have to open. Shotasya shotram, ear of the ear you have to open. Manaso manoya, the mind of the mind you have to open. Pranasya prana, the ultimate life breath of life breath you should realize. When you do that, what happens? Amrito bhavati says Kenopanishad. Pretya asman lokat amrito bhavati. Who? Atimuchya dhira. Who has freed himself from all the bondages. How? By realizing there is an eye behind this eye. There is a mind behind this mind. There is a ear behind this ear. There is all faculties behind this faculty. Pranasya prana. He'll realize that. Means there is a Atman. There is a divinity in me which is the source of it all. And therefore, the one who realizes that becomes free. What happens to him? Atimuchya dhira. Parimuchya. Get rid of all attachments in the world. Nothing can bind such a person. I'm so impressed with this Swachhanda Charina word. It keeps coming back to me so many times. Antar vikalpa shunyasya. No thoughts inside. Absolutely clean, pure. Bahi Swachhanda Charina. Roams around like a king outside. King of what? Vairagya Samrajya. King of kings is. Roams around without any fear. No attachments. Nothing can bind him. He's a wind. And does what? Spreads this fearlessness everywhere. As his nature is, he'll teach others also how to live this nature. Somebody looks at him and says, how are you like this? Always happy, ever free. Nothing bothers you. Never saw you worried. Never saw you tensed. How is it possible? With so many tensions in the world. People will ask you. That time you should tell, there is a secret to all this. I have learnt it. And I will teach you. Provided you have this Shraddha. Then you have given you a very practical 30 days program just for them to learn whether they are improving or not. Then they will get motivated. Once you taste that, never you can taste again. This is Ramakrishna used to say, a peacock used to come, I used to feed it opium in the milk. So peacock will come every day at the same time. No clock, no watch, no alarms. But the temptation to taste that opium in the milk will come every day to Ramakrishna. She was joking when the one devotee came and that fellow was very argumentative and spoke something. Ramakrishna just blessed him. He went away. Next day, on his own, he came at the same time. So everybody was shocked. This fellow will come, he never thought. He spoke so much ill. He said, no, I have fed him the opium in the milk. That is why he is coming again. He'll keep coming again and again. What is that opium? What is that intoxication that he has got? God intoxication. And that God intoxication is making that person come again and again and again to the Guru. He is restless at home. I must see Ramakrishna. Because I have to experience that. That is what he is telling all the time. Once you taste that, nothing, everything is insipid. Tasteless. Because taste of that, Karjura, Falamadi, Falamulukanna, what is all that sweeter than sweetest? They should know this. Ramadasa's bhajan is there. Yanto ruchira. Sri Rama, O Nama, Ni Nama, Yanto ruchira. Iksharasamukhanna, Draksharasamukhanna, Karjura, Falamadi Kanna, Yanto ruchira. Why will he sing Yanto ruchi unless he has tasted that Ramanama? Why will this Ramadasa leave his Tahsildar business and go and build a temple and enjoy this bhakti? He experienced something which nobody has experienced. That is this Atmanubhava. Once you experience that, I can give it to you in guarantee writing. You would not like to come down for something silly as this. But you have to really experience that, not intellectually. You have to really experience that. Every morning you will think, when will it be morning? When can I get up? When can I start meditation? That's kind of excitement it will start. Let me sleep early. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Cut down everything. Close the books. Close the computer. Switch off the lights. Before warden comes, everybody is asleep. Warden will be shocked. What happened to my students? Till yesterday I had to sit and put them to sleep and come back and check. Still at 12 o'clock like owls, they all will be awake. But look at them, 9:40, everybody is asleep. 4 o'clock they're up, 5 o'clock by the time warden comes to wake you up, you're already up. What are you doing? Sitting on your beds and dhyana mudra. Think of a Mudanali like that. Think of a world like that. Everybody runs to sleep. Why? Because they want to get up early. So they're fresh in the body, fresh in the mind. That's the perfect time, Brahma Muhurtam, to start some meditation. Why? Because that is what will give them the taste. Then the time passes and you can't get. That is what I was telling these boys today. Your prana, apana and Prana are there. Prana is what he said, prana is the king. He has four, he distributes work to four people. Upana, Vyana, Udana, Samana. Apana is the one which is responsible for all ejections out of the body. Even the breathing out is Apana's role. Prana only brings in, and prana resides in our face here. It energizes all these senses. Apana resides in the navel and takes everything out from there, all pushes the air out through exhaling. Vyana is there, which goes from inside to outside. All the nerves, nadis, energizes them. Samana balances all these forces. The prana up and the apana down is balanced by samana. And what is the result of it? The positivity that gets generated, the energy is udana, that takes the energy up to the Brahmarandra, they say. It's a very beautiful description in Prashnopanishad. What is this prana, apana, udana, samana? He says that uchvasa, nishvasa, etau, ahuti. These are the oblations in the fire. And who is the priest? The uchvasa, nishvasa means apana and prana are the ahutis. Priest is samana, that vayu which sits in the center and balances your inhalation and exhalation and makes it equal. Sama, nayatiti, samana. It breaks it into same. See, how much ever you exhale, the same amount you inhale, then exhale again in same amount. So that distribution samana does. This is a yajna going on inside. You look at the concept. Yajna, who is performing? Samana is performing. What are the ahutis? Prana, apana are the ahutis. Who is the yajmana? Manohavava yajamana. Mind is the yajmana, for whose sake this is being performed. What does this mind want out of this yajna? They say, Ishtaphalamaya danaha, O danaha. Udana is the Ishtaphala, the result of this yajna, that vayu, which is the positive vayu, which goes up. And what does this udana do? It takes the yajamana, aharaha, brahma gamayati. Day after day it takes this yajamana mind to the Brahman. Udana's job is that. So if your prana, apana, samana, vyana are perfectly working, you have plenty of udana vayu. And that udana takes your mind to the Brahman and makes you realize the Brahman. So every morning you get up at 4 o'clock. Why 4 o'clock? I tell 4, 5, 6 because see, we have two nadis, Chandra Nadi and Surya Nadi. Which nostril are you breathing from now? Just exhale and see, touch and see. Which nostril is that? Only one, not both won't be there most of the people. Yeah. So you know that you are breathing only from one nostril at least for now. Right is Surya Nadi. When sun is up, right breathes. When moon is up, left breathes. It means your transition is happening still. Those who are still in the right, they will shift to the left because they are spending energy right now. So that is why this is working for them. But the time comes during the day and morning and evening when the day and night meet, both the things work. That time your prana is the strongest. Most of the air you are able to take in. Otherwise from one pipe you are taking. Now both pipes if you take in, so much more energy is going in. All that yajnam happens. Udana gets generated. That udana takes your prana, mind to the Brahman. So that's why you need to have a lot of udana. It means what? First breathe properly, breathe enough. What is the breathing? Both nostrils, if you breathe, that is the highest amount of prana will go in. So highest amount of udana will get generated. That's why morning times and evening times. And then what? Apana you should reduce. Apana means eating too much because it's known for ejection and excreting. Everything out of exhalation, ejections, excretions, everything is apana's job. It's just the opposite. So if you eat too much and sleep, or you're engaged in activities which leads to all lower desires, then what happens? Your apana vayu is taking away all your energy. Nothing is left for udana. That's why control on senses, control on mind, thoughts, all your eating habits, all these are important to have much udana, which will take the mind to Brahman. So in 4th week all this is coming. I'm just giving you a glimpse of it. So you have to get ready. 4th week is extreme sadhana. Sadhana means mind should be under control, indriyas should be absolutely steady. You should be able to wake up early. You should not speak much during the day, eat limited and sattvic way, and see the difference within yourself. Because udana vayu will get so strong. And it has no option but to move up. Hot air moves up. So where it will move up, as it moves up, it will take the mind along with it and take you to Brahman. Naturally. It says daily it does that actually. However, in the deep sleep it does that. It takes the mind to Brahman in the deep sleep. So what happens to the mind? There is no mind in deep sleep. Do you realize that when you deep sleep, you sleep very well? You don't even realize you slept well. You wake up and say, you don't even know it's afternoon, day, night, what is the time? You have to really check the calendar. What happened in that time? Your mind went to Brahman. And when it goes to Brahman, what happens? Again Upanishad. Tejasa abhibhuto. In Swapnas, what happens? Mahimanam anubhavati. It sees all things which it need not see also. Mahiman, it becomes so powerful, it can create worlds of its own, people, places, things of its own. But in deep sleep, what happens? Tejasa abhibhuto. Sa yada tejasa abhibhuto. It becomes overwhelmed by the Brahman, tejas of Brahman. Mind forgets itself. Like when you see some terrific scene, you forget everything. You're stunned. You're stupefied. Like that, mind gets stupefied in front of the Atman stages. Then what happens? Na swapna pashyati. It doesn't see dreams then. And what happens? Tishtati sukham. It remains peaceful in the body. Sharira tishtate sukham. That mind becomes peaceful. That is in deep sleep. But deep sleep is you're not aware that you actually experienced Brahma Samadhi. It's like it came and went, you didn't even know. So that kind of deep sleep is. So every day this udana takes you to Brahman in your deep sleep stage. But daily as you live, as you're awake, can you go in awakened state also to Brahman is the question you have to ask. That is possible with this, with these practices. Purity, control of senses, listening to Shastras and believing in those words of Shastras, then practicing it by your own daily efforts. So begin somewhere there. So beautifully Shankaracharya, no? Guru Charanambuja, Nirbhara Bhakta, Samsarat, Achirat Bhava Mukta, immediately becomes free if he listens to the Guru. Depends on Guru, listens to the Guru, believes in Guru, Samsarat Achirat Mukta, immediately gets freed. And then what he has to do? Sendriya Manasa Niyama Deyam. His Indriya and mind should be in Niyama. Niyama means in discipline, control. Sendriya Manasa Niyama Deyam. Then what happens? What does he see? Drishyasi Nija. He sees his own self. Where? Hridayas. He sees in his own heart, his own self. When Indriya and mind come under control. By how? By listening to the Guru and following what Guru says. His Indriyas and mind come into the sense. Drishyasi, in his own heart, Hridayastha Devam. What is the Deva? He is living in the heart. Nija Hridayastham Devam. In his own heart, not in the neighbor's heart. In his own heart he realizes. When he controls his mind and senses, his pranavayu is not wasted in apana, but it is rather converted into a lot of udana. He is energized all the time, and he practices some of these basic disciplines, yama, niyama. So he realizes God. See, it's for everybody to realize God. That is the beauty of Vedanta. You're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, whoever you are. You're atheist also, is chalta hai. Why? Because we are not saying you have to believe in somebody is God. Or someone is God. You are God. You are that divine principle. How elevating. You mean to say, I am God? Yes, you are God. So can I realize that? Yes, of course you can realize that. What should I do? This is what you have to do. So unless you have walked this path, how can you guide others? So your path is this. Whoever you are a teacher, you are a student, you are a staff, you are a woman, man, grahastha, tyagajivi, sannyasi, brahmachari, does not matter. Anybody is entitled to this realization. Probably they put some effort. It's your right. So beautiful Vedanta, so beautiful is Advaita. And this is easiest to understand. All other philosophies are tough. Only thing without any conflicts is Advaita. No conflicts whatsoever. Clear, you are Brahman. You know that, you know everything else. Once you know that, Atimuchya, you become free from everything. Then what happens? I am free, Swachchanda Charana. I do as I wish. I am not a slave to anybody. Not to my senses the least, and not to anybody else also. I do what I feel like, because you always do the good then. What a life. Nobody can dictate terms to you. Now, entrepreneurs say, I want to be my own boss. That is when you are your own boss, when you are Swachhanda Charina. When you become Antar Vikalpa Shunyascha, there is nothing left inside you. Clean, pure, like a mirror. Nothing is left. No reflections left. You are. That is the idea of Aham Brahmasmi. To contemplate on this great novel glory of this realization. It should tempt you. It should actually, really it should drive to experience that. Because experience that, everything becomes so beautiful. No sorrow left. Kauka moha kashoka. How beautiful that time would be. I go on telling. Imagine the view from the peak. Imagine, so all students are going climbing Nandi Hills. Why will they climb? It's such a pain to climb. Isn't it? Climbing so tall, such a big hill. Legs will pain, you will sweat, you will pant, you will be suffering. Truthfully, muscles will strain. Everything will pain. Then why do you want to climb Nandi Hills? You want to see the view. You want to see the view from there, which you can't get from these plains. So then you have to put efforts to climb. Same efforts you are putting now. If you climb up and go there, view is so beautiful. So I am tempting you with the view. That is so beautiful, it's so beautiful. So you believe that it is really beautiful and you should think it's worth all the effort. And let us at least see once, climb the Nandi Hills. I am not saying you settle down there, but at least climb and see once what it feels like. What it feels to be a free bird. What it feels like. That is the idea of Brahmagyana. You must put effort, there is no doubt. All of you can attain it, given that you put sincere efforts. So tomorrow's number of sentences is 30, 20. See how they are fighting. The moment I said 20, no, 30. If I told 40, everybody kept quiet. We forgotten, leave it like that. If teacher forgets that today is class test, everybody keep quiet. Don't even remind him that today is class test. Let the class get over. Then teacher will say, "Arey, today was class test. Nobody reminded me." Oh, sir, we also forgot. Had I told 40 sentences, everybody would have been quiet. 20, I said, no, 30. It means how tempted you are to speak. That is what I am checking. Shaking the nail and checking. Okay, so 30 is 30. Then stay at 30. So in 2-3 days you would have realized what all the things were unnecessary and you can still cut it down further. And these are also unnecessary. You could have avoided this. So you see your husband and wife, you see at home. So should you not look at each other? Look at each other, smile. Smile is a great talk. It's a great language, Language of love is there. The less you speak, the more you can smile at home. The more you speak, the less you smile. Something unnecessary comes out of your mouth, then it becomes a cause of all sorrow. So good, keep quiet. You will tell less lies. You will not speak unnecessarily. You will not hurt anyone by your words. Even if something is going on, you will keep it within yourself. It won't go out and hurt. So many benefits of Maunam. So practice that Maunam for at least reduce it and bring it down to zero. And spontaneously, naturally. Not with so much of effort and pain. It should not be a painful process. That is why I did not say. When Totapuri caught Ramakrishna, I said, now I will give you Sannyas Diksha. Only then I will start teaching you about Advaita. I am not saying anything like that. I am saying you have your breakfast, dinner, you do your work, go to sleep. Everything is okay. Everything in limit, yukta, ahara, vihara. That's enough for me. And what did I say? Slowly, gradually reduce your talk because you must realize the 1 week of silence, if you really observe, you will know the value of it. They always say, speech is silver, silence is gold. Why? If silence is more demand, then it should be, that is why it should gold. Why it should be in more demand? Because actually it is the most beautiful experience. So many intuitions will come. So many unimaginable insights will come to you about life. So many of these mantras, my talks, speeches, books you have read, suddenly they'll all start revealing their meanings to you. They were all waiting to reveal, but you are not ready. You are not available. All that will start coming. That 1 week of silence will be supreme experience. Amazing experience if you can keep that way. So that is why I said last 1 week, cut down everything except for your classes or some basic things. Just cut down everything. Don't try to unnecessarily interact with anyone. Even make it even stricter. Come on, in so many years, 1 week of silence, can you not give it to God? All this while, God give you everything. You used it thoroughly. 1 week of control and silence can you not give? So prepare yourselves mentally. Mind resists, teach the mind. No, mind shouldn't resist like this. This is good for you, good for me, good for everyone. More than this is what is bhakti. I'll do it for the Guru, I'll do it for God. Let me to prepare your mind from today onwards. For 30, 20, I would be happy if you don't even have to go by 30, 20. Maybe day after you say, I don't need to speak at all, Swami, I'm fine. Something is very urgent, I'll open my mouth, otherwise it's all right, it's fine. Why should you wait till last? People who are brilliant, how do they write answer papers? The brilliant, they finish in half an hour, they're dying to submit the paper. The teacher says, sit down. Sir, I finished. They'll be waving the paper in front of teacher's face. They want to finish it early. Why should you not finish this sadhana early in the sense? Stop speaking early. Why should you wait till 7 days also? That is in your hands. If you have developed that kind of control, then go ahead and do it. Okay.